Welcome to Empowered to Grow, the podcast. I am your host, Hanan Basha, the business doctor. Following our conversations with empowered women who woke up one day and consciously claimed, I am more than enough, I am worthy, I am empowered to grow. And along their empowering journey towards realizing their own potential and their quest for growth, they became a beacon of hope and guidance for others. May you also find your inner power to grow. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Empowered to Grow podcast. This is your host, Hanan Basha. I am super excited to be here today with a lovely lady who actually we met online, and that is one of the perks of online life. It's crossing paths with amazing empowered women in their own sense. My guest today is Nicole Webb, and she is an Australian lady who happened to be an expat for a good chunk of her life. And she ended up in China. And then she found the opportunity being embedded in a new culture, a new society to, well, literally take off the lens of judgment and stereotyping and really see how similar we are. And she became an author of China Blonde book. So Nicole, welcome. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you so much for asking me. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure always.
To see you again. Love to see you online. Yes.
Thank you. Well, I always start with this question. I say, the show is called Empowered to Grow. How did that resonate with you? Or what did that mean for you when I said, Nicole, I'd love to interview you on my podcast and it's Empowered to Grow?
Yeah, it's funny. It made me stop and think about what had really empowered me to grow in my life. And it was before we even went on our expat adventure, actually. It was, I was working as a journalist and I was a newsreader for a channel, a 24-hour news channel in Australia, in Sydney. And I'd been in a few difficult relationships, you might say, and things weren't really going well. And I was 35 and I thought, I think I really need to do something maybe for myself for the first time, to grow myself and empower myself, because I think I was feeling that I had very little power at that stage, even though I had this amazing career that I'd really worked hard for. Other things in my life were bringing me down and bringing that down. So I really decided to go and volunteer in Africa, in Kenya, with a few friends, two girlfriends. I was going alone at first, but we sort of managed to meet up over the months of organising it. And we went there for 6 weeks. Where we volunteered at a children's orphanage. And I think that was sort of the catalyst for me really changing paths and really looking inward at who I was and growing and, the start of new things. Exactly. So that's what I felt came to my mind, actually, when I was looking at
That's interesting. I didn't get that before, so thank you.
There you go.
Well, speaking of being empowered to grow, you've got a story as well, and that story ended up with a book. So would you tell us a little bit more about how you empowered yourself to grow through your journey?
Yeah, well, gee. Beyond that, well, really it was a matter of, while I had, as I said, become a newsreader, and that was sort of my dream job, or so I thought, I married my husband, who was a hotelier, and they like you to progress and move around. And at the time, I remember not being particularly enthused, not because I didn't want to live overseas, but I think I just felt I was too old and I'd missed that boat. So we kind of dismissed it for a little while. And then maybe a year later into our marriage, a job came up in Hong Kong. And, I had just lost a friend, one of my best friends, to cancer. So I guess that really showcased or highlighted how short life can be. And I really thought, what, I just think, we could be doing the same thing in another decade. It's very easy. Time flies, doesn't it? It would be very easy for me to be driving into the same car park at Sky News and reading the same news bulletin in the same shift. And I thought, I can't, because I didn't feel like I had much motivation at that time, because I'd been there for 10 years, and I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. So I just found myself saying to James, I think we should go. Like, why don't you put your hand up for the job and see if we can get it?
Yeah.
I was terrified, as all expats are, I guess. You think, oh, what am I doing?
It's an adventure.
And it is. And my mum kept saying that to me. It's an adventure. What's the worst that can happen? You can come home, Exactly. Then the week that he found out he got the job, we also found out that we were having baby for the first time. So it was like, oh, wow, okay, this adventure's really going to be fun.
That's a multifaceted adventure.
Yes. So here we are, arriving in the amazing Hong Kong, pregnant, left my job behind. We're living in the hotel for a while. Like, we don't have cars and can't drive and don't know anyone. So yeah, it was really scary, but also, I guess, invigorating.
Yeah.
And I guess, as an expat, it takes quite a long time to settle in.
Yes.
And I think you just have to really go with that and be patient. I remember I was quite impatient, especially being pregnant with hormones running through me.
Yep, that period never gets erased from my mind.
My poor husband, he's trying to, do a new job and prove himself in this role. And of course, working many hours. And in Hong Kong, they work like crazy. They're really hard workers. Yeah. And so it was considered early if he left the office at 7 p.m. at night, So I was alone quite a lot, and I kind of had to wander through the streets, waddle and see what I could see, and, come to terms with a lot of things, identity, as we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Suddenly I had to think about, who was I? Because I guess I didn't realize that being a newsreader had really been so tied up in my identity. Yeah. And even, if I'm honest, the whole ego thing, because you are on camera and you have that attention, and that is tied into it. And it was all about kind of taking a step back and thinking, no, who am I really?
Who am I? Yeah.
All of that.
I love that phase.
So it took a while, and I was quite agitated for a while, especially when I looked at the visa and it said housewife, and I was like, this is just not me. How can that be? And then of course you have a new baby, and the baby doesn't sleep, and you feel like all you're doing is changing nappies and feeding them round the clock. So it took a while for me to work out perhaps what I could do and what I wanted to do. And through word of mouth, I got offered a job emceeing an event, which I went and did when Ava was 9 weeks old. And I was scared. Again, I hadn't really done any emceeing. And I must have been okay, because they asked me back for 10 years in a row. So I still go back to Hong Kong.
I'm going to cut you off. For those who don't know, emceeing is Master of Ceremony, which is presenting at special occasions. So just so everyone's on board with it.
Yes, so you're basically hosting, and it's a bit like reading the news, but you've got the entire audience in front of you, which was a bit more nerve-wracking for me. So that was sort of the catalyst, I guess, for doing more things. I wanted to obviously have work that was flexible, having a baby and being in a foreign country. And I started to write. I had written as a journalist, but that's very short, sharp stories, 2 minute here, who, why, where, what, how. But I started a blog, which I wanted to tell about life in Hong Kong and be a bit creative. And I found I really enjoyed it. And I think I was going back to my roots, really, because as a kid, that's what I loved doing. So I sort of felt at home again, writing. And we were in Hong Kong for 4 years, and we ended up loving it.
Great.
Once I got over all of those initial stages of culture shock. And then my husband got the call to move again, because he needed to be the general manager of his own hotel. He was number 2 at that point. So China kept coming up. And we kept trying to sort of avoid it. And we tried other, there were Bangkok and Seoul and Bali. Jobs came up, but then they came and went, or James got down to the top 3 and it didn't work out, or we went and we said no to a couple. We actually said no to Wuhan in China. We went up there, and it was just so different to anything in Hong Kong, once you cross that border. But it was clear, 6 months later, that China was not going anywhere. They were just building, a phenomenal
Homeland. You gotta
number
go to
of
the homeland.
hotels. Yeah. So I said, you know what, I think we've just got to do it, and again, I thought it's another adventure, and it does empower you. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I had survived Hong Kong, and I thought, well, we can survive this. How bad can it be? And if it is that bad, we can always leave, So Xi'an came up, and that's in sort of the middle of China, the central sort of northwest of China. James went up first, and then we went up a few weeks later. And Ava was 3.5 at that point. So, and their life began in a new city of 9 million people. Hong Kong had 9 million people as well, but they were chalk and cheese.
Yeah, definitely. But that's the amazing thing is, again, what I wouldn't say the stories we tell ourselves, but there's also, media plays a huge role in forming our conceptions and our perception of different cities and different cultures and different places of the world. And I remember when I went to the States for the first time, for example, and they're like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm Egyptian." It's like, "Huh? Really?" Like, it's like intriguing. Like, we thought everyone's a terrorist over there in the Middle East. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
My friends from school, I went to school in Kuwait, and I remember my friend, when they went to Canada, for example, or the States for university, and they came back and I'm like, how are people taking you? Like, how are they accepting? It's like, oh, they were fascinated that I came from a British school. They thought we all live in tents and ride camels. They're like, yeah, and we ride our camel to school in the morning, But it's those kind of things. And as you said, like for you, it was like intimidating and intriguing moving to, Far East, or moving to a country that literally is, it's on top of where you actually are. But we get intimidated by the stories because what do we expect? And as you said, how bad can it be? But in essence, it could be actually a very pleasant experience.
And I think we also forget that they are equally as intimidated by us, which I guess I didn't realize either. While I was sort of a bit daunted, because we would walk outside of the hotel, and Ava being very blonde and very fair skinned, they were fascinated by us, because I think many of them were from different parts of China who'd never really seen a white person. So they were just, wow, and it took a while for us to realize, were they thinking wow in a good way or wow in a bad way? Was it scary? Because it was scary in the beginning when they would pick her up, and I think these are strangers, you wouldn't let a stranger pick up your child in Australia. But it took a while for me to realize it is harmless. It's just a pure fascination with us, just as we are fascinated by them. And it is, often they've only seen Westerners on American movies in those second, third tier cities in China. And all we see is the news stories all the time of them behaving badly. So we don't really know what a culture is like.
Exactly. I love this. So you decided to capture your experience in a book.
I did. I would always wanted to write a book, and I didn't quite know what it would be about. But as soon as we sort of went to China and stepped on Chinese soil, and it was just so fascinating and mad and crazy and busy, just beeping day and night, firecrackers going off left, right and center, cars just colliding all over the road in different directions, bikes with 4 or 5 people on them, no helmets. It was just different to anything I had seen, even Hong Kong. It was kind of like going back in time in the 70s, everyone smoking, street food carts all over the place.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because this is so Egypt for me. This is
just like, I think
that's everyday life for us.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just really different, and I just thought, wow, there's got to be a story in this. I didn't quite know what it would be, but the more I was there, the more I realized I wanted to try and show the world what the average Chinese person is like, rather than the economy is second largest in the world, or the political party, the Communist Party, so I did a lot of interviews, put my journalism to good use. Once I felt comfortable, it took about a year or even a year and a half to feel brave enough to do that sort of thing, and I had a translator. And we interviewed all sorts of amazing people, from World War II veterans that sang Qing opera in the army, to a Tibetan boy who was teaching a young Lama boy English, to just your average young boy and girl that are living in China, and, you know, all their thoughts on everything from marriage to education to politics to culture to life. And that was sort of the story. But then when I got back to Australia and was doing a lot of courses in writing, because I mean, it was a whole new world for me. I had no clue how to put it together. They said, you have to be in the story. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, it's your journey. I'm like, really? Okay. So then I had to weave in all of our sort of daily adventures, challenges, you know, the trials and tribulations, the funny things, the not so funny things, keeping our relationship on track. You know, as you know, being in another country, it's so important to be on the same page.
Yes.
You know, when are we going to leave? When are we going to stay? So I talk about a lot of that. We talk about the friendships, because, you know, you meet, as you know, friends from all walks of life that you probably would not meet in a normal circle in your own home country. So you're exposed to so many different things, not just the Chinese or culture, you know, lots of other cultures as well. And, you know, what makes us gravitate towards certain friendships. I found that quite interesting. So, yeah, there's a lot of different underlying themes there. And
but that's a beautiful thing. I think what you did is you personalized and personified culture from your own view, from your worldview lens. But more importantly, in a way that actually honors the individuals in the story. So we're not just talking about China, we're talking about the individuals. And this is what I love about cross-cultural communication. And I was born and raised in Kuwait, and as an Egyptian, I was embedded into, like, I grew up into this, I call it a melting pot of civilizations and nationalities and cultures and viewpoints and stuff. And that's what I always loved about it, is there's a person behind the story, rather than saying Americans or British or, you know, Asian,
not that
or whatever
broad generalization that people
there's
have.
this, you know, Middle Easterners. There's like, immediately you think, well, whatever, whatever you think. It's just
but you have an image, right? Immediately,
exactly,
and it's usually from the media, because we just see snippets of life, and it's usually when something's going wrong. So, you know, we don't often have that insider's view. And of course, my view is only from a Westerner's point of view. So, you know, obviously I'm not claiming to know what the Chinese think, but I did get a lot of them to tell me and talk to me, and, you know, as much as they could. And it was really interesting to hear their viewpoints about life there. And, you know, that a lot of them don't even really see what's going on around the world anyway. They're kind of, you know, in their little bubble there. And they mean no harm, or, you know, so
but it's life for them. That's their perspective. I love that.
Exactly.
So, from your experiences, from where you stand now, what advice would you impart on your 20-year-old self?
Oh, gee.
I like to surprise them with this question.
Yeah, you know what? Oh, don't waste so much time on boys.
That's very valid advice.
Yes. Stop wasting all your energy. Get out there. And, you know, I wish I had traveled more. I was so concerned. I wanted to be a journalist, and I can be quite determined. And I was like, if I leave the country and do a gap year or go overseas, I might miss out. So therefore I stayed put. You know, looking back, I would think, just go and have the adventure, have the fun, do it. You'll learn so much anyway, and so much more. And don't be so stressed out and caught up by the small things. You know, try and embrace as much as you can and learn as much as you can about different people and cultures. And it's a big wide world, isn't it?
That's true. That's true. So if we take the other end of the spectrum now, from a time capsule perspective, what would you like your 90-year-old self to thank you for?
Wow. My 90-year-old self, I hope I'm still going at 90. I hope I'm still writing books.
That would be amazing. Yes, that is the plan. Let's put that as the intention for now.
Yeah. I think, what would I like my 90-year-old to tell myself?
To thank you for.
To thank me for.
Yes.
Maybe I would like to her maybe to thank me for going out there and achieving my dreams,
Mm-hmm.
for not giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's very easy to give up. It's very easy to think it's too hard. And often I have nothing that really has come to me has been easy. I've always had to take that difficult path, even from becoming a journalist to becoming a newsreader to becoming an author. All of that's been tricky. I've had lots of rejections and told you're not right for it or whatever. So I think it's always just fine. I'm thankful for myself that I always find another way of doing it. And I don't give up, and I will keep going until I get there.
I love that. So I like to sum up with this question. You're on a stage and you're talking to tens of thousands of women, and the speech is more like empowered to grow. So it revolves around that topic. What would be your closing statement to them? What would be the message you leave them with?
Oh gosh. To grow. I think to be yourself. Don't let anyone change who you are, and don't let anyone try to put you in a box.
Mm-hmm.
We are all very unique. We're all very different, and that's our song. Nobody's the same, and don't ever be afraid or sad or disappointed because you don't look like or sound like, or your brain's not the same, or you haven't achieved the same, or I think you are you, and you are very unique. And I think that's your calling card. Remember that's really special and important, and no one else in the world is like you.
Sure. My message always.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, Nicole, this has been amazing. Where can our listeners or viewers find you in virtual space?
They can find me on my website, www.nicolewebonline.com. And that will have all the details of everything there. But I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and that's all Nicole Webb Online. So you can find me there. And I've got a blog, Mint Mocha Musings, which I don't write on as much because I'm not overseas having as much fun. But there's lots of amazing stories on there as well. So but if you go to my website, that is generally where you can
where they can
find everything. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your energy and for sharing with us these amazing stories.
Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. It's been really fun.
Thank you. As always, I would encourage you to, of course, get in touch with Nicole and follow her and see her adventures and her viewpoints. And it's amazing that at the end of the day, if, again, I always call for this, if we're more human and we're more humane, we will be able to shed a lot of the things that separate us, and we will be able to connect on so many more levels than we already do. Well, as always, you can empower yourself to grow. Your empowered you does empower others. So love, abundance, and prosperity to you all. Thank you for listening to the Empowered to Grow podcast. For further engagement with a tribe of empowered women, join my Facebook group, Empowered to Grow, or visit my website, www.hananulbasha.com. I'll catch you on the next episode. And until then, know that empowered you empowers others. Love, abundance, and prosperity to you all.